Let's start. Good afternoon and welcome to this virtual meeting of the South West Wales Corporate Joint Committee Overview and Scrutiny Subcommittee. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Please ensure your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. And in addition, when asked to raise your hand, could you try and remember to raise your electronic hand? It will just make it easier and we can all go sequentially as well if we do that. Whilst I'm on Chair's announcements for the purpose of the recording, as much as anything else, I need to let you all know that we are struggling to maintain a quorum at CJC Scrutiny Committee today, but we've got 1 hour of precious time that we're going to do as much as we can in. So we're going to move agenda item, was originally 5 to agenda item 4 and 6 to 5, and then after that, we'll go back to the normal agenda, if that makes sense. We're just jumping those two up because we need to get them through. Hopefully that's clear to officers and members. If there are any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I think we're happy to proceed because we are against the clock today. Yeah, good so far. No hands. I'm going to carry on then. Excellent. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? Any members need to record anything? Please let me know.
I see no indications, Chair.
Okay, so I see no indications either, Tom. And I waited at least 3 seconds before I was about to move on. So we'll move on. Agenda item 3, minutes from previous meeting. Some members, the minutes of the 16th of July before us today for accuracy. Do members have any comments? Okay, can I please have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Thank you, Councillor seconding. So happy to go for that through. Yeah, all happy. Lovely. So unless anyone's going to indicate to the contrary, the minutes are approved. Magic. And agenda item 4, which is now agenda item regional transport plan policy. Okay, on this new adapted agenda. So I believe we're going to have a presentation of this from Stuart Davis. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, I believe Stuart Davis will be taking this item.
Yeah,
excellent.
Do that, Chair. Right. What I'll do, I'll introduce, just give the background on it, and then I'll bring Lee White in, who's assisting us with the development of the regional transport plan, just to give an overview and an update of progress, really. So that's certainly a significant part of it. So the purpose of the report was really, firstly, was to provide an update in terms of the RTP, the different work streams that are being developed and where we are and progress being made. Secondly, the purpose of the report was to look for endorsement for the regional transport plan policy framework, which is included in the appendix. What that effectively is that's the taking the higher level kind of policy, Welsh Government policy of the Llwybr Newydd, and then very much applying a kind of the regional flavour to that to make sure that the policy framework is sort of representative of our needs in the region. And then the final element was to look for the endorsement of the revised regional transport development work programme. This is something that we've raised, I think, since from the start. Really, the start of the regional transport plan got delayed. A number of reasons. The guidance coming out from Welsh Government was delayed, and so the start was delayed. And I think all the way along we've flagged up that it was likely to run later than the preferred timescales indicated by Welsh Government. So really, the purpose was to sort of formally state that our current projections are that we're looking to, instead of a final submission in April, it'll be sort of end of June that we are at the moment. So that's it was really just conscious of seeking that sort of endorsement from CJC for that. So. So what I'll do, obviously, there's some appendices to the report, and there's various things in the report itself, including the stakeholder sort of mapping and different things on there. I won't go through those, but I'll bring in Lee, who can give a good summary of where we are, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Stuart. That's excellent. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction there, Stuart. The report sets out a number of work streams that are underway at the moment. As you can see, the timescales are challenging, I think it's fair to say, but we are making significant progress against those timescales. I think several things are going on at the moment, important to record. First of all, we've produced a book of data that maps effectively the census data plus various other socio-economic data, so we can understand the region and the likely impacts of that on the transport network. We've also done an amount of analysis looking at accessibility to key points within the region, mainly focused on travel time, and we've done that by active travel, so cycling and walking, buses and trains, and also by car as well, just to give us that background information to develop the regional transport plan from. In terms of the actual plan itself, the most important element to date has been obviously the acceptance of the case for change. Although Welsh Government are not going to formally approve that, they have given us positive feedback, and that is therefore been subject to the recent public consultation that's occurred in the last few weeks. Just as a flavour, we've had 814 responses to that consultation, the vast majority of which were individuals. A quite significant number, we believe, in terms of this type of open-ended consultation. I think some key themes emerging from that number, a reasonable spread of responses around the region, and we're just compiling some statistics on that we can share with the committee if you believe that would be useful in terms of response rates on particular locations, and particularly from the four authorities. In terms of the headlines from this, there was a number of statements to agree with the state of the transport system at the moment. I think it's fair to say that the two key emerging themes from the consultation were obviously, firstly, a concern about the potential level of active travel measures that the plan may include, and obviously there was a recognition in the consultation that active travel space may not be suitable for everyone, particularly in the more rural areas. So that's obviously something for us to focus on within the plan. Secondly, the other key message that emerged from the consultation, and I say we're doing some detailed analysis at the moment, it is early doors, but the other key message to emerge is effectively the availability, cost, etc. of public transport, both bus and rail. There was a great deal of concern about the hours of operation of buses, frequency of operation, the fares that are charged, the actual coverage of the network, the journey possibilities by bus in particular, but also effective interchange to the rail network as well was an item of concern. So those are the emerging themes. We are about to produce a paper on that will set out some of the headlines, and more than happy to circulate that to the committee in the next few days as that becomes available. In terms of moving the RTP forward, I think that consultation gives us a really sound base now. We do have the policy framework, which is the appendix A to the report, to the main report, that sets out a number of policies that are set around, as Stuart says, the regional context to the RTP, obviously following not slavishly, but following the Welsh transport strategy. We've also then got a series of policies about how we would go about delivering the RTP itself and the delivery plan that supports that, the actual strategy document itself. So that's about funding. It's about the organisations that are involved, how we monitor the plan, how we'll review it, etc. So that's the policy framework, quite a key document for comments that we'd invite on that at this stage. Just in terms of the next steps, once again, two things are going on. We've started considering schemes this morning, actually, at a workshop with officers this morning. So very early days in terms of developing a prioritised list of schemes. We've started out by simply identifying a very long list of schemes to start a filtering process and putting some information against those potential schemes. The other activity that's going to be key over the next few weeks is actually going to be engagement with technical stakeholders, in terms of there's a number of workshop sessions that we're running with key stakeholders. We're talking to bus and rail operators and officer colleagues in those areas tomorrow. There's a session around education, transport coming up, and there's a number of other pieces of engagement with those key stakeholders around the region and more widely that we need to reach out. That'll all be taking place in the next few weeks. Once again, we'll come back in due course with a report about that activity. But I think this is really at the heart of shaping the regional transport plan and the schemes within it. Understanding where the technical stakeholders are. I think, Chair, the final area to comment on is that we're in process of setting out the basis of the integrated wellbeing assessment, which covers matters such as the strategic environmental assessment, a number of other matters that I believe Christie's leading on for the CJC, the integrated impact assessment tool that the region and CJC has got. He's going to be part of this, but it covers matters such as environment, it covers the Welsh language, it will cover all those social issues that we're required to cover in that strategic impact assessment, as you would expect for any large programme of policy development. So that's ongoing. We're just about to finalise the scoping report for that and then engage with the statutory bodies that are relevant to that. So Natural Resources Wales, Cadw, and there's a number of others that we need to touch base with just to get them to agree with that scoping analysis that we've made. So lots of progress, Chair. Obviously, as Stuart said, the recommendations are set out in the report, and it really is inviting comment on the policies in particular, and obviously moving those forward through the CJC process at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. Appreciate the overview. Members, do you have any questions, please? Yeah, good news, David. Your Teams link is working perfectly. Councillor Howlett, can I ask you?
Thank you. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the report. I noticed last week the Independent Active Travel Board came out with a report about walking and cycling, where it described the Wales is making, inverted commas, painfully slow progress in getting more people walking and cycling. I see that walking and cycling is part of this policy as consultation. So, my concern is there's huge amounts being spent, and it's laudable that it is, but if it's not having the desired result, the question is that the best thing? And I'd probably say no. So can I ask officers what consideration, I know it's only come out last week, what consideration has this report, or will this report be given to ensure that the best bang for the taxpayer's buck, because ultimately it's a taxpayer that's paying for all this, is going to have in terms of walking and cycling? And thinking about the painfully slow progress we're making, is the priorities that we as a body have been put in place, and across all Wales, I suppose, what should be in place to make sure that it's the best use of public money? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Howlett. Stuart, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll start, and other colleagues will land in as well. Is concerning, as you say, there's been a lot of investment in infrastructure. I think the Active Travel Act was sort of, a kind of a world-leading piece of legislation, and in the Llwybr Newydd, the walking and cycling in terms of from sustainability, health, well-being is top of the tree. It's top of that kind of pyramid hierarchy that's down from Llwybr Newydd. There has been a lot of investment, and they want to see that investment continue to have those things. what's actually clear is that the build it and they will come is not the sort of is not necessarily going to sort of deliver on there. It's something that we've been discussing, over a number of months and years really, and it's clear there's going to have to be other forms of promotion and development to encourage that transformation and the transition from other modes to active travel, and that's going to be a significant challenge for Welsh Government and also for the local authorities to enable that. So certainly that will be part of the discussions that we'll be having and the feedback that we'll be giving and working with Welsh Government on that. What we have tried to do, certainly through the policy framework, though, is recognise, and I think Lee touched on it, in some of the, rural areas and other areas, it's clear that active travel is not necessarily, the option that's going to, the transport option that will be fit for all, and it's more kind of pertinent in some areas than others. So it's something that what we wanted to do from the policy framework that we put in place was to ensure that it was representative and it had that kind of also had the priorities across what is quite a diverse region as well. So it's not that it will just be walking and cycling. There has to be recognition that the other modes do have to be catered for, and that our priorities need to reflect that, and that's what our bids, hopefully, and our programs and projects will reflect as we go ahead. But I can see that Darren's probably indicated in terms of on there, who's one of my colleagues.
Yeah, I did notice that. Stuart, thank you. Yeah, Darren, did you want to come in? Councillors, I'm not jumping him in. It's just I think you might want to say something now. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I did quickly want to add, Stuart has covered everything very well there. Just to note, Councillor Howlett, no, we haven't had a chance, obviously, to really consider that feedback in any depth at all. We are at a very formative stage, really, of the development of the RTP, because we're going through the consultation, and this meeting here obviously is something we will also feed back into the review work and the production of the RTP. So it's very timely from that point of view. But just to reinforce what Stuart said, really, I mean, in terms of that policy aspect, we are a bit beholden to the national strategy in terms of how we build up the RTP policy and what we can subsequently bid into for capital schemes. So I'll pause there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair.
No, thank you, Darren. That's excellent. Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Percy.
Thank you. I was going to come in on active travel, and perhaps with a slightly different angle to some of the previous comments, actually. And I think I was going to ask, really, in terms of how the CJC sees its role in delivery of active travel across the region. Of course, local authorities are doing their own thing at the moment to varying degrees of success and enthusiasm. And I wondered if the CJC had given some thought to what it would focus on, e.g. is it key cross-boundary routes, key arterial routes for economic development, etc. So there was that question. And then just in terms of the kind of discussion that we've just had, I think I kind of see this as this can potentially be a bit of a catalyst to get more of that delivery of infrastructure. And I think it has been patchy across Wales. Some councils have done significantly better than others. And I think in terms of the kind of build it and they will come, I mean, that's very proven to work, but there's a lot more building to do. And I think, particularly when you're talking about a transport network of any type, whether it's walking, cycling, bus or rail, people need to be able to get from A to B and need to be able to complete an entire journey. And I'm sure as many local members in the room here will have residents who can't walk from one street to another because of inaccessible footways and pavements. We've got some really basic work to do on our walking infrastructure before we even get into cycling across the region, which is why this is so important. But actually, there's so much more to do. So I think there's an opportunity here, certainly, to get some of those key routes where there are cross-boundary work that needs to be done. I think there's an obvious opportunity. But yeah, I'm curious as to how far the CJC wants to kind of reach in into the local authorities' current remit on active travel. Diolch.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Percy. Should I take the other questions, Stuart, and from Councillor John and Councillor Cundy, and then come back to you so we can do it in 3? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I am aware you're short of time, so I won't go over all the points. But I think we all saw that report which came out, because I actually printed it out to raise issues which Councillor Howlett and Councillor Percy just raised. One of the suggestions in there, it said because of the slow progress and there's been no significant increase in walking and cycling in more than a decade. It says the report from the Independent Travel Board recommends focusing future government funding on 1 or 2 towns in each local authority to ensure greater impact. Well, that's great. You might get more bang for your buck, or whatever way they put it for that, because you'll direct the money where there's a lot of people. But we've already heard this morning or this afternoon in the update from Lee, which was excellent. Thank you, Lee. It's rural areas where we'd really need to make the big impact if this is going to be successful. And I mean, when I say in rural, I'm not talking about hamlets of sort of 20, 30 houses. I mean, the villages I represent are sort of 800 residents, and there's no regular bus service, there's no cycle paths, there's no footpaths. There are areas where people rely on the car. There's a proposed development in one of the villages I cover of 67 properties, which is huge for a village of this size, and no increased plans for active travel around to ensure people can be more sustainable in public transport, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of work on priorities with this. It's not just about towns and city centres, it's getting out to these rural areas and improving. If you want to get more benefit, because you can have everybody in a town centre walking from A to B or cycling, but you're still getting the same amount of cars travelling around. Because of the lack of buses and public transport. I was asked questions about the consultation, which Lee touched on. 850, mostly from the public, I think is quite a good response. I was imagining it to be sort of low figures, but bearing in mind we've just had the Boundary Commission review where there was one, in Pembrokeshire, there was one public response out of all the responses. 800 odd is quite good, so it would be good to have a breakdown of that and see what people actually think. But the key to me, again, and we go over this every meeting, but page 21, it says on there the full cost of the RTP is yet to be determined, but it remains clear that further funding will be required. So unless Welsh Government really get behind this and put proper funding in where these schemes are developed, we can spend as long as we want putting this plan together, and it can be absolutely fantastic on paper. A lot of officer time, a lot of our time, other people's time putting it together. But unless Welsh Government actually puts some substantial funding into it, nothing's going to come about it. So I suppose that was comments really, Chair, more than questions. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Councillor John. Thanks for being brief. Councillor Cundy, can I ask you next? And Mark, I have seen you as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you very much for the update. I also share the concerns over active travel, but I don't think it's only just about rural areas. It's also about the elderly, the infirm, the disabled. It's difficult for people to be able to walk around or be able to ride a bike. They just can't do it. And I just don't think that it's ever been really factored into the situation. Everybody seems to think that everybody's 32 and fit and can go everywhere. So I do have a concern about the way that the active travel, the amount of money that's being spent on active travel in comparison to actually the bus services and things like that, which are really, really key. They're the basic infrastructure. We don't seem to be doing very much on that. Seems to me anything west of Swansea, it's really, really poor, to be honest with you. We got estates where I live where after 3 o'clock you can't actually get in from the estates into Llanelli itself, which is crazy. So I wonder what we are doing about the bus services, and are we linking with the councils on this? Because I believe there is a push to ask the councils to start bringing up their own bus services. Are we looking at that? And that's my question, I suppose. But thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cundy. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just back from a holiday in Brittany, where before I may not have been an active travel advocate, but certainly since being there and seeing active travel being implemented well, I think there is an awful lot that we can learn here in Wales, and particularly in tackling the kind of piecemeal approach that we've got to developing. So I very much agree with Councillor Percy on this, that if we're going to do it, we need to do it in specific areas, and we need to do it well, so that people have the confidence to be able to get on their bike. Even myself on an electric bike, after 22 years of not riding one at all, it was quite an enjoyable experience, provided the infrastructure is in place to make it happen. So I think that's absolutely key here. Small routes everywhere is not the way forward. We need, a systematic approach, and it needs to be done maybe in urban areas first, certainly to try and get that mix between public transport, buses, trains, and then walking and cycling to happen too. I noticed that you mentioned about the policies. There are a number of policies alluded to in the papers that we've had, but I do think they need some further definition. So the first policy there that just caught my eye was reducing the need to travel. I mean, what does that mean? And who else do we need to engage with in order to reduce the need to travel? If we're talking about health services, if we're talking about the delivery of public services, if we're talking about more public services availability in areas, there is a move to centralising services currently. So I don't know how we reduce the need to travel without there being that much wider approach to this. And there is no mention in the policies about connectivity. So if we want to put all of these services together, and we want to put all these different modes of transport together, I'd like to see a policy that actually discusses that in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turney. Okay, and because I'm in danger of losing track of the questions, if I go any further, Sean, I'll come back to you, Stuart. I think the first one we've got is about the role of the councils in terms of the active travel network from Councillor Percy. And then I think Councillor John was raising points about the rural aspect and what's been considered there for active travel again, as well as general comments about the funding. But I'm sure that this document will be a catalyst for Welsh Government to invest in the region, and it's going to be an exciting start for all of us. Then also Councillor Cundy was talking about the issues of accessibility for some of our more vulnerable members of society in general, really, and how we can access travel. And I think I agree with him. I wish maybe all of us were still 32. That would be lovely. So we can get around that way. And Councillor Turney was also asking then about policy one, which did stand out. And I think, maybe that goes to the point about funding. If we can reduce the need to travel by improving infrastructure locally with a massive investment from Welsh Government, we'll all be happy. But I'll pass over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Chair. And I was starting to think it was the generation game for those who are old enough to remember about the. But yeah, I'll go through, and I'm sure other colleagues will come in on there. I think the first mention was about the strategic sort of active travel routes and the reference to build it and they will come. And sorry, it does have an impact, but it's clearly not having the full impact. So there is an element of absolutely providing the infrastructure, but then there's an element of promotion and sort of encouragement, awareness, and different things that needs to be done. It's a bit different, isn't it? If you put a bypass or something on a village or a town, then you've got automatic users. It will automatically have a take up. With active travel, it needs that kind of modal shift. It needs people to change be comfortable to change their patterns to do something that they're maybe not used to. So it requires, certainly the infrastructure to go in, but it also requires a lot more other work. And I'm touching on other bits are brought in, but it also requires funding, not just for the building, but also for the maintenance and making sure that it's maintained to a good standard. Because if it's just built and then left, you then end up losing. It becomes less attractive as an alternative. So there's certainly a thing, but to gain that modal shift is not just easy. It's not just the capital investment. So I think it's something on there. Mentioned with the type of journeys for active travel in terms of on there, traditionally, and things are changing as they do all the time. Traditionally it was for the sort of shorter journeys, and remember it's sort of cycling and walking in terms of on there. But as was touched on by Councillor Tierney about the electric bikes, and that's probably going to have a fairly significant difference in the type of length of journeys that'll be considered with active travel. So if they can be, and although they won't be suitable for all ages, as was mentioned by Derek Cundy, that there's certainly an element if they can get that kind of into the normalizing it, I guess, in a sort of way that the for people to consider doing active journeys, then it's there's a number of benefits all round. So so that needs to do it. It is clear from the hierarchy from Welsh Government, from Llwybr Newydd, that we have to prioritise sustainable modes, and that's a very clear message coming through for environmental reasons, for health reasons, for sort of air quality, for a whole host of reasons. So and that's the very clear steer. So our role is to try and interpret that through there. I can't say, obviously, the CJC, it's the members of the CJC that decide on the direction we're putting together. We're trying to interpret the policy from an officer perspective and putting recommendations across. So then those recommendations will be considered by the CJC and will give us the steer. And then it will be down in terms of the implementation of what comes out of that, which are the regional transport plan schemes and programs will then be down to individual authorities to sort of implement. So, we're at the moment, we're at the stage, as I say, where we're trying to interpret that. As I mentioned about buses, one thing that was very clear and came through from the consultation was the importance of buses, and certainly I think there's always a mention when with transport, it's about rail. Well, there's a massively greater sort of impact from buses, and they carry a huge amount of people, and it's been very challenging. Not just from COVID, but it's very challenging times for the bus industry. In general, the sort of patronage has declined and things on there. But as part of the sort of development, Welsh Government are pushing ahead with legislation to look at franchising, to gain more control over the bus networks. The challenge is that it comes at a great expense. I think careful at the expectation for franchising. It doesn't mean that there'll be a bus passing everyone's house every 20 minutes. But at least there will be the control at the moment. The routes, which the commercially operated routes, and I guess to a certain extent we benefit from Swansea. There are some very viable commercial routes, which is great because you've got really frequent journeys. But then there are outlying areas where they have to be subsidised, and the link up is sometimes challenging. You've also got the cross ticketing and things. Everyone's got different tickets for different operators. So that what will come through clearly, and what's come through not just from the consultation, but the work that we're doing is the importance of the bus networks and how they, we've got to develop the right infrastructure for it. So that the bus journeys, we look at where the bus journeys are being delayed and how they can be improved, how we can get that right level of investment to ensure there's sort of reduced journey times and improved reliability. How we've got decent quality hubs and interchanges for where they are. Simple things like the interchange between bus and rail, sort of an alignment there, so that you don't end up sort of getting off the train and you've just missed the last bus. So there are a number of things, and it's about trying to tie up these different modes so that there's a viable, reliable, effective, sustainable alternative. So I would definitely say, certainly, Councillor Cundy, that the bus investment prioritisation will be high on the list. It has been for a number of years, but it will certainly be coming through loud and clear, I think, from the programmes and the prioritisation. And there was the mention of the reducing the need to travel. Obviously, this was one of the Llwybr Newydd priorities. It seems sometimes quite a challenging one, really, almost, because it's not directly a transport intervention as such. It's an aspiration where to have that. But what we're trying to do in terms of the regional transport plan is sort of interpret that down to how we can assist in terms of through this process. And I guess part of that is that that we're trying to work with we're certainly working with colleagues in terms of the land use planning, to make sure that when sites, for the future sites, I guess, what's happened historically, across the UK and probably across the world is sites for development, whether it's housing or whatever, have been selected on how attractive and appealing they are, and then the transport has to be fitted in around that to sort of make it work. What we're trying to do, I guess, through the regional transport plan is break that cycle and help influence that land use planning, so that that if there are two sort of alternative sites, that the one might be considered which has already got the transport infrastructure or is nearer to some of the other facilities. So that's kind of the bits I could remember, Chair, but I'm happy if anyone else wants to come in on that, Lee or others.
Thank you, Stuart. I think if generation gain comes back, you'll be fine. Okay, you could be one of the contestants, definitely. That was brilliant. Thank you. And I just think the one aspect that comes to mind, but I'm sure it will be considered by the CJC later, is with active travel, is bike storage as well. And I know there's been an innovative development in Newport where there's a shop, isn't there, where you can put your bike in it for a day, for £1.50. I think that kind of thing is going to help give people the confidence, like Councillor Turney was talking about, to get on an e-bike and know if it's safe when you go back to pick it up to go home again. That's really important. So, but I'm sure it's part of the planning process. Thank you very much, Stuart. You've been very patient there, Councillor Fursey. Got to come back in.
Dear David, thank you. Yeah, if I can briefly, and thank you as well for the very comprehensive response to that sort of set of questions and debate. I just want to kind of make an extra observation and point just on active travel before we kind of round this off. I think it is quite important, given that as a group we're going to be kind of scrutinising this work going forward. And I'm quite a keen cyclist myself, but I'm very keen to impress that active travel is not just about cycling, and it's not just about young men in their 30s either. But I really encourage everybody who hasn't read the guidance to read it, and only because the comments around older people with disabilities, that is actually an integral part of the active travel agenda, the active travel guidance. It's about making communities accessible. And particularly from a walk-in pedestrian point of view, it means wide pavements, it means level crossings, so it means people in a wheelchair, people in a mobility scooter, mums with pushchairs can get around communities. So when we think about active travel, if we just think about fit people sort of rushing about, we're not really looking at the whole picture. It's about accessible communities for everyone. And a lot of the criticism I often hear about it is around those elements that are actually included in it, and us as politicians can lobby for those improvements and deliver that using this agenda. So I had to make that point at the end of the discussion, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to do that. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome, Sean. Thank you. That's a good point and well made. Thank you. Councillor Bowen, you've been very patient as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the answers. Just one concern, as Sean knows, this is part of Neath but Talbot's and the committees that we sit on. It's a big discussion on active travel, bus routes and so forth. Are we all going to be working off the same page and not duplicating any work? And, officers have got to be sitting down doing this, and we've got to be all working on the same type of thing. And how is this going to be monitored, that we're not duplicating the work?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowen. Stuart, over to you, please. Yeah, thank you. Certainly, what we're very, very much trying to do here, selfishly, I want the region to be very successful in terms of on there, and I want this transport plan to be a really strong kind of bidding document, so that we all work collectively as a region to the same aims, the same ambitions, and that we've got something that's really a really convincing sort of piece of work, so that we can get more than our fair share of investment, if anything, to improve accessibility, because ultimately journeys are performed for very good reason, in terms of whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's social, it's across the board, and it's about trying to enable that as effectively as possible. The hierarchy gives us the sort of the framework around which we must bid, and we need to make sure that our process, that it isn't sort of duplicating, that we're all working effectively as a region and getting as strong a voice as possible across to secure that investment. So I'd certainly hope, Councillor Bowen, that's what we'll achieve at the end of it, and that's what we're trying to work towards.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Darren, did you want to come in there as well?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Just to add again to what Stuart was saying there, from the work that we've started to do in the production of the RTP, it's clear that there are themes from the kind of high-level projects that are starting to emerge from consultation. So we're already starting to think about how we can coordinate that, put them together in terms of headings, for want of a better word, for bidding purposes, but also for coordination purposes. I think our region has got a very good track record of coordination. As it happens, Swansea coordinate or the lead for us in terms of the regional transport plan work, but we also coordinate on the metro production work. We've done that for many years, and we also have a subgroup of transport officers who look at the public transport side of things. So we are quite used to and like working together in terms of the officers and trying to share knowledge, trying to share information. And I think it's clear that Welsh Government expect us through the regional working to do more of that. So hopefully we can build on that knowledge and experience that we've got and continue to do that. I hope that helps you as well, Councillor Bowen. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Darren, for that contribution. Michael, you did have your hand up, but you've lowered it again. Are you okay?
Yeah, I hadn't taken it down from before. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Just checking. Lovely. Right. Well, I'd like to thank you, Stuart, for the report, the update, and the comprehensive answers to our questions today, and also from the information from you as well, Lee. Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments at this point? No? Good. So that item is for noting, I believe. So we've noted it. Am I correct, Tom?
Yes, so one element of it is for noting, and then the other section is for endorsing. So I believe the recommendations were for noting the verbal progress reports from officers on the RTP development work streams, and
hopefully we're happy to endorse the apologies, Tom. Thank you.
That's right.
So do I need a proposer for us to endorse?
I believe so.
Let's just assume we do then. Okay,
Yeah,
so can I ask somebody to propose?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone happy to second?
Happy to second, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr, Sean. Thank you. Okay, so can we all raise our hands if we're in agreement? Anyone wanting? Thank you, everyone. Anyone wanting to abstain? Anyone against? Just check, Councillor Davis. Are you?
Councillor Davis, can I just check? Were you voting for, abstaining, or against?
You're muted. Sorry.
I thought I'd put my hand down, but
I
must have pressed it the second time without realising.
You were voting for initially, I believe. Is that correct? Is that? And then your hand stayed up. Excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, I went through it a bit quick. That's Councillor Davis. My apologies. That's my fault. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you again, Stuart and Lee and Darren. You're welcome to stay. But we'll move on to the next item. Okay, bye. So the next item on the agenda is the Joint Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Strategy Strategic Equality Plan. So we're looking forward to an update from Christy, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The purpose of the report really is just to give you an update on where we are in terms of developing our strategic equality plan, and that starts off with us formulating the joint diversity and inclusion strategy, really, that will inform the regional strategic equality plan. what we're doing, which is important, is not duplicating. It's just building on the good work within the region already, and it's just making sure that if there are any gaps within the region that we haven't reached out to in terms of people with protected characteristics, that we have ensured that we've met with them and engaged, and we've given them the voice, really. So to date, we've taken a paper to the CJC in July as a draft document, and we've engaged with the Human Rights and Equalities Commissioner, and we've shared a copy of the strategy with them, and we're waiting for feedback, really. So within that strategy, we've given several commitments on how we're going to engage with our partners and build upon the work they've already done. And within that strategy document, there's an action plan that will enable us to inform the regional strategic equality plan, and that's been developed in accordance with the Equality and Human Rights Commission's guidance as well. So that's the purpose, and the recommendations really is asking members to endorse the strategy to go ahead to CJC on the 12th of September then for approval.
Thank you very much. That was excellent, and really shows the key, I suppose, of the collaboration and the partnership working as well, which was mentioned by Councillor Bowen in the last item. So are there any questions? No. Okay, so I would like, we have to endorse this item as well, and we know what we did last time. So can I ask for a proposer, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen, and Councillor John seconding. Thank you. Okay, so if we could all raise our hands if we're happy to endorse the document. Thank you. Okay, any abstentions? Oh, sorry, if you could lower your hands. That's the bit I should have said, right? You could lower your hands. I'll get there in the end. Any abstentions? No. Any objections? No. Okay. Anyone against? Nobody against. And right. Thank you very much. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Christy, diolch yn fawr iawn. Okay, so we'll move back to the original item 4, which was the Q1 financial monitoring 24-25 item. This is an information report. I believe we've got Stephen Jones here to present for us.
Yes, thank
you, Stephen. Excellent.
Thanks.
Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll make this quick. The report starts on page 9 of the report pack, but I'll draw your attention to Appendix A on page 13. So this report details the forecasted Q1 financial monitoring for and year-end position for the year end in 24-25, so this current financial year. And this was presented to the Joint Committee in July. So as you're aware, in January 24, the Joint Committee approved the 24-25 budget, which was set at 615,000 with a levy from each of the constituent authorities. And this levy was reduced by 10% through the utilisation reserves, leaving roughly 556,000 to be raised through the levy. This year we also have a Welsh Government grant of £100,000 for the Transport Subcommittee. Last year we had 120,000, and we fully expect to spend the entire grant this year. So the main point I want to draw from this report, as you can see from the appendix, that the outturn shows a surplus position of 132.7 thousand. The reasons are set out within the body of the report, so you can read those, because I'm really a little bit pushed for time. And again, looking at the very bottom of the appendix, you can see that reserves have been accumulated due to expenditure not having begun in the first year operation of the CJC and very limited activity again within 23-24. It's anticipated that the reserves will be in the region of 976,000 at the end of the financial year. So again, it's really short, brief to the point, but I'm open for any questions if needed.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions, members? Yes, Councillor Howlett.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the report. Maybe I'm just being too sceptical. £615,000, including some money from reserves, but ultimately someone somewhere has paid for that. You know, are we seeing the benefits to this whole process that it was intended to? For one, I think the jury's out. But if anyone wants to put an alternative view, that might be my lack of knowledge. But you know, I think I'm going to just ask the question: does this whole process add value and is value for money? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, David. Stephen?
That's quite a difficult one to answer, Chair. As I said, we do have substantial reserves, and I believe in November this year there is going to be a workshop to determine priorities going forward to use those reserves. Obviously, this year and last year we've been prioritising the RTP due to having substantial, well, reasonably substantial Welsh Government grant. But yeah, obviously with almost £1 million worth of reserves, the CJC can then start moving
difficult
forward.
position,
Yeah,
Stephen, that's fine. I understand. I think, you know, Councillor Howlett, is you hopefully have attended previous meetings where we've discussed the financial issues related to the CJC and the, you know, that if it's going to work effectively, the need for it to be funded to ensure they get that work done. And also we've noted the CJC's decision last year to carry through a middle position where it would conduct its legal responsibilities and the regional transport plan. But this committee has previously noted to the CJC, we've written to them about our concerns, and they've been echoed by the CJC chair, Rob Stewart, when he's come on and discussed it as well. So I think all of us are singing from the same hymn sheet in that respect. Whether it will, how it will prove and improve value on partnerships that are already well founded and work and collaborative work that already goes on is yet to be determined, I suppose. You know, that's something maybe beyond the remit of this group, but hopefully one thing we have seen is that the CJC is starting to develop and it's still in its relatively early stages. I was wondering, Stephen, if I could ask a question, whether we might be able to see a reduction in the levy next year based on the cost again, and potentially something the CJC might wish to consider.
That might be something that we consider in the workshop, and then when we set the budget in January. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully, colleagues might agree that might be a good idea rather than seeing reserves matched up, because obviously we've all, in our other roles, seen unfortunate cuts to services due to the settlement continuing to provide cuts to the bone to our services locally. But there we are. That's a separate point.
If I could add,
Stephen, go on. Sorry, please come in.
Once you've used the reserves, they are gone. It's a one-off kind of thing. And would you rather use the money to progress each subcommittee's responsibilities rather than just reducing the levy? So it's weighing out what you want to do, really.
Exactly, where workshop will come in handy for us to for you to work that through, and the CJC to come back to us. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Oh, Councillor John, you've got a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The workshop you just mentioned, Stephen, who's on that workshop, or who's is that officer led, or is that going to be member led? How's that workshop going to be set up?
Could I defer to Christy for that one? Sorry, Christy.
Hey, Christy.
Great. Again, it's something that we scheduled in for November, and I anticipate that there will be officers and members and really of the relevant groups and CJC members as well. But again, if I can encourage anything, it will be to prepare this group really of anything in particular that you want us to consider as being those priorities for 25-26, and that's priorities against our functions of the CJC and the financial, so the priorities as well and concerns. So if you're happy, I'm prepared to come back before that workshop to try and engage any comments that you want us to raise.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Christy. That would be very helpful. I think we've got the forward work programme on our agenda coming up. So if we might get to that. We've got 6 minutes left, so we'll see how we go. So were there any more questions, comments on this item? No? Okay, thank you. So that item is for information purposes. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the forward work programme. Perfect timing, as this we've just discussed there. So Tom, we've made in the pre-meeting, we've had a look at the work programme. Would you like to take on from there?
Yeah, so we had a look at the CJC forward work programme, and members picked out sort of highlighted 3 in particular, but I think the other reports as well the committee was keen on. So the 3 main ones were the Welsh Language Standards Compliance Update, which is an information report, Budget Update Pre-Audit Return, which again is an information report, and also the South West Wales Regional Energy Policy and Scene Setting, which is energy funding request. Those were the main 3, but I think members were also keen to include the draft RTP, IWBA and RTDP decision report, the Q2 financial monitoring report as normal. So I think those are the ones that the committee were looking to add to the forward work programme.
Yeah. How would we add Christy coming back to us to talk about the priorities before the November workshop in? What would we call that?
We can add that as an action, and
okay.
And we could liaise with Christy then, so I could pass it on to Alison as well to arrange that, and then work out the best way for Christy to come back to the committee and for you to feedback your views for Christy to then take those into the workshop then, I believe. But I'm sure, Chair, if you have any other ideas on that, or Christy, you can.
Christy, have you got any suggestions there?
Yeah, we have our programme board and steering group every month. So our next one is next Tuesday. So again, I can raise that as a part of an agenda item with members, and then I can propose what we're intending to take to the workshop and share with you, and then you can give your feedback as well.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. That'd be a very good opportunity for us to contribute there. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Any other suggestions, members, for items to add to the work programme? Or are we happy? Is this okay? Something we'll continue. We'll circulate the proposed forward work programme after the meeting. Thank you. I'm going to move on then to agenda item 8, which is urgent items. I'm been made aware of no urgent items. Nobody's approached me, and I don't believe there's anything to say now. Magic, thank you very much. Okay, so I would like to thank everyone for their brevity today and focus, and also the contributions, which I think, although been brief at times, I think have been very concise, on message, and very focused. So thank you very much, members and officers, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you. I'll close the meeting.
Thank you.
Take care. See you.
Take care, everyone.